So today we're going to talk about perfectionism. And I don't mean the kind you mention in a job interview, as a strength. We're going to look at it for what it often really is, a prison that we build for ourselves, a cage made out of control that's really forged from a deep, deep anxiety.
This quote, this really gets to the very heart of the story, doesn't it? It's that moment of realization when you see that what you've been calling ambition for so long, well, it might just be anxiety wearing a really convincing mask. So let's unpack that a little. How does that even happen?
Okay, to really get this, we have to go back. Back to a childhood where unpredictability was just normal. When you grow up around a lot of emotional volatility, you'll learn things without even realizing it. And I learned this quiet but really powerful lesson. If I could just do everything perfectly, if I could just behave a little better, study a little harder, then maybe, just maybe, everything would hold together. I felt like I had to become the perfect boy.
And that right there, that became the foundational rule for my survival. Certainty meant safety. It wasn't something I thought about, not consciously. It was a feeling, deep in my bones. In a world that just felt so chaotic, the only place I could find refuge was in the things I could manage, the things I could make predictable. Certainty, that was my safe harbor.
And this is where you can see this massive disconnect. On the one hand, you had what everyone else saw. Teachers, relatives, they saw this responsible, disciplined kid, and they praised me for it. But on the inside, it was a totally different story. It was a constant storm. I was just relentlessly scanning for any potential mistake, living with this terrifying fear that if I let my guard down for even a second, the whole thing would just fall apart.
So the big question is, how does that safe harbor, that refuge of control, turn into a cage? Let's take a look at the psychology behind it, because it's really about how our own nervous system ends up trapping us.
It's actually a pretty logical progression, even though it's kind of tragic. It starts with experiencing unpredictability. From there, your brain learns a lesson. Not knowing is dangerous. So what do? You start trying to manage everything you possibly can. Your grades, what you say, how other people feel. And pretty soon, control isn't just a strategy anymore, it becomes the same thing as safety. And you learn this final, exhausting lesson: peace isn't just given to you. It's something you have to earn through constant, relentless effort.
And the consequences of this are, well, they're profound, because once your brain wires itself that way, you can't just flip a switch and turn it off. All of a sudden, rest feels dangerous. It feels reckless, like you're letting your guard down. And failure? Oh, it's not just a setback. It feels like you're literally falling through space with nothing to catch you. Even moments of pure joy start to feel suspicious because they represent a lapse in your vigilance.
And Brené Brown just nails this with her quote. She says, "Perfectionism is a 20-ton shield that we think will protect us, but it only keeps us from being seen." That's the central paradox, isn't it? You're carrying this incredibly heavy shield, thinking it's going to protect you from all the judgment and failure out there, but in reality, it's so heavy, so dense, that it stops anyone from ever seeing the real you. It might keep you safe, but man, it also keeps you completely and utterly alone.
Okay, so what's the actual cost of carrying that shield around all the time? Well, living behind it does two things. It creates this relentless inner critic, and it puts you on a path to what feels like an inevitable collapse.
This inner critic, think of it as the voice of the shield itself. And let's be clear, this is not a voice of wisdom, not at all. It's really just the personification of your deepest fears. It becomes like this little police officer inside your head, constantly whispering, "Be careful, don't fail, don't you dare relax, don't disappoint anyone." And just like that, your life stops being an experience to be lived and turns into a performance to be judged.
And of course, a habit like that, an inner voice that loud, it doesn't just pack up and leave when you grow up. It follows you. It followed me right into college, into my relationships, into my career. The crazy thing is, I was praised for it. Oh, he's so reliable. He never drops the ball. But all that praise just made the prison walls thicker. It was rewarding the very behavior that was just slowly eating away at my peace of mind.
But here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's just not a sustainable way to live. You can only keep up that level of hypervigilance for so long. Any system that's built on a foundation of fear is brittle. It's not a question of if it's going to break, it's just a question of when. And when that collapse came for me, it was completely overwhelming. That quiet hum of anxiety that I'd lived with my whole life? It wasn't quiet anymore. It became this deafening roar. As you can see here, my peace was pretty much gone. Sleep barely existed.
And that's when perfectionism finally took off its mask and showed its true face. And for me, that was depression.
But you know, there's a strange thing about hitting rock bottom. It can create an opening. I was at a point of just complete emotional exhaustion. The old strategies, the old ways of controlling everything, they just weren't working anymore. And in that empty space, a new kind of question finally had room to breathe.
And this question changed everything. For my entire life, the only question I ever asked was, how can I control this better? How do I fix myself? But this new question, it challenged the entire premise of the problem. What if this can't be fixed by control? What if the very tool I've been using, control, is actually the source of the whole problem?
And sitting with that question, it led to this really profound insight. The idea that there's a separate me in here, a little pilot in my head, who is managing and controlling my life. I started to see that maybe, just maybe, that's an illusion. The self that I was working so hard to perfect, it was really just a collection of thoughts, a bundle of fears and memories. It wasn't some separate thing standing apart from life. It was life happening.
So once you start to see through that illusion of the separate, controlling self, well, it changes everything. So let's explore what that new perspective actually looks and feels like. From this new place, you can finally see the huge difference between perfectionism and a genuine pursuit of excellence. See, perfectionism is all about fear. It's the avoidance of vulnerability, at any cost. But pursuing excellence, that comes from a totally different place. It comes from passion, from love. It's about expressing yourself fully, not about protecting yourself from ever failing. And your relationship with anxiety starts to change too. It's not the enemy you have to fight anymore. It starts to feel more like a messenger, a signal from your own body, just gently saying, hey, you've been trying to control way too much. It's an invitation to just let go.
So you start to see that the ultimate freedom, it isn't about mastering the controller. It's not about getting better at managing your thoughts. Because really, trying to control your thoughts is just another form of the same old struggle. It's like perfecting the prison, decorating the bars of the cage.
No, the real freedom, it's just in the seeing. It's in the recognition that there is no controller inside of you to begin with. There never was. There is just life unfolding. Thoughts arise, feelings pass, all on their own.
And I want to leave you with this final thought. Freedom isn't something you achieve. It isn't another goal for the perfectionist to chase. It's what remains when the effort to control just disappears. It's your natural state. It's what's already here, just waiting quietly underneath all that effort for the moment you finally decide to let the shield down.